Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Orr. We have a great show. We're going to talk about the potential of J.J. McCarthy with the 8th overall pick. Some of the standouts, particularly Georgia's own Ladd McConkey at the Senior Bowl and what his draft range might look like. We're also going to talk about an interesting video from Alex Anthopoulos, who talked about not adding jerks to the roster. And I thought this was absolutely fascinating. Can't wait to get into that. But we're going to start off with the an idea that we've kind of thrown around, that the Falcons should double up on the quarterback position this offseason. ESPN has us doing that. Who are the two guys that ESPN suggests the Falcons go after this offseason to try to fix their biggest hole this offseason?
ESPN went to, the respective team beat writers. So this comes from Michael Rothstein. He has them signing Russell Wilson in free agency, and then he has them taking Bo Nix in the second round with their 74th overall pick. Let me give you some background on the article. Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins signed contract extensions with the Buccaneers and the Vikings, respectively. So, considering those two guys are off the board, I don't know how much I hate the Russell Wilson thing, and I'll throw it back to you. The contract is what's really appealing. 3 years, $36 million. Only $20 million guaranteed, front-loading the contract. Obviously, that is a move in anticipation that potentially Bo Nix could be the starter in 2025 or 2026. You can move off Russ without, limited financial ramifications.
Yeah, I've said it all along. I don't think Russell Wilson. Listen, obviously we have our favorites. Some people like Justin Fields. Some people like a top 3 quarterback in the class. But there's a very good chance that these kind of things don't come to fruition, and the Falcons have to go out and search for a stopgap option. And they could do a lot worse than Russell Wilson because, like you said, 3 years, $36 million for a guy that's been to multiple Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl, had a lot of success, wasn't even really that bad last year for the Denver Broncos. The contract is what's very appealing. So listen, if they have to go the stopgap options, it's not my favorite personally, but I don't think it's anybody's, and you might just have to do it. I like the idea of doubling up. I wouldn't even mind doubling up with the 8th overall pick if they really liked someone not named Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. If they really like him, I don't mind it because he's probably going to have to sit behind him. Sitting behind a guy like Russell Wilson, you could do a lot worse worse than that. So we'll see what Zach Robinson, Raheem Morris, and Terry Fontenot decide. But I do like the idea of doubling up on the position because you got to start throwing darts at this thing until something hits.
Yeah, the Raiders beat writer ended up, forcing a trade with the Bears, a 2nd and a 7th round pick for Justin Fields. Now, personally, I would do something like that. Everything this offseason about the quarterback position is going to be met with polarizing opinions. Either you hate it, you love it. I seen J.J. McCarthy is J.J. Ritter and stuff like that. Falcons Twitter hates the idea of J.J. McCarthy. And I think that's going to be the opinion of Falcons social media all offseason long. It's not one situation other than maybe landing Caleb Williams is going to be met with resounding agreement. So I think that, we can all respect people's opinions. And the fact of the matter is we're fans for a reason. We give our opinions, but we're not in a position to make the actual choice for a reason. Personally, this is all, I don't want to say disappointing, but I would be let down if the offseason netted Russell Wilson and Bo Nix. I'm getting my hopes up. You see the shirt. It's LSU. You know who I want. The reality is he's probably not going to be there. He's going to probably go 3rd overall, Jaden Daniels, to the Patriots, who are, in a position to draft a quarterback, kind of hitting that reset button. Bye-bye, Bill Belichick. Hello, Gerard Mayo. I just don't know. Like, when we entered the offseason, Chase, I was very optimistic because it felt like, the world was at Terry Fontenot's fingertips. And as we approach free agency in the draft, it's becoming very clear that the options might not be as abundant as they were, say the last couple weeks in the season.
Yeah, the most realistic option seems at this point like a trade for Justin Fields in terms of the future of the organization and the upside that is there. The top 3 quarterbacks, they're, even if you go further down the board, there's a team like the Giants. They're probably looking, and then there's 3 or 4 teams behind the Falcons that would love to jump the Falcons and take their pick of the litter. Even if a guy like Jaden Daniels. So the fact that the Falcons are not most likely, almost certainly, and I know there's been some mock drafts suggesting this, going to be able to just sit there and land Jaden Daniels. There's just way too many teams right behind him. There's the Giants right in front of him. I'm sure Dabble would love to get his hands on a quarterback like Jaden Daniels if he fell to them at 6. So the Falcons, if they're going to want one of those top 3 guys, if it's even plausible, are going to have to trade up. I don't mind Bo Nix in the second round, especially at pick 74. I mean, it's not the sexiest thing, but I mean, you're talking about a guy that some people probably consider a first-round pick, has plenty of experience, had a ton of success in Oregon. It's at least a little bit of a lottery ticket later in the draft. I'd probably rather have that than a guy like Michael Penix at that same spot. My personal preference, if you're going to, and I've said this before and we're going to talk about him later, is J.J. McCarthy. I think he's a clear-cut 4th quarterback in this class, and I think that will kind of show itself as the process moves forward. But I don't even think, and like I said, we're going to talk about it. J.J. McCarthy going in the top 10, 15 picks would not shock me. I know a lot of Falcons fans hate to hear that, but it would not shock me one bit.
I'd be shocked if he went in the top 10, top 15. I would not be shocked. The hope is that the general public is much higher on somebody like Jaden Daniels than, say, other teams in the league are. And that way, this happens all the time and it's happening with Michael Penix. Let me tell you right now, if Michael Penix goes in the first round, I will eat crow. He is not a first round quarterback. He's not even a second round quarterback, but will probably go in the second round because teams are desperate. The fact is maybe the general public might be higher on Jaden Daniels than, the Patriots or like the Giants you mentioned, or some teams behind the Falcons, and the Falcons do somehow land with them at that 8th overall pick. That's a hope that, we can all hope and do that. And I think that the opposite is true with J.J. McCarthy. I think the general public hates J.J. McCarthy, but the NFL is going to be higher on J.J. McCarthy than the general public because he's 20 years old. The Michigan offense didn't do him any favors, and I know we're going to get into this in more detail in a later a segment, but the fact is the NFL scouts prospects in a much different capacity than the fans do when we just watch games and we kind of, bake our whole opinions on what we see on one screen, and it's not the all 22 screen. It's just what we're being shown by ESPN. So that's not how these NFL teams scout quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, with Jaden Daniels, you got to just hope that everybody in front of the Falcons just lost his 2023 tape and only looked at his 2022 tape, because that's the only way I see that happening. I mean, if you just look at the trends of the league and these mobile quarterbacks and stuff like that, and how much value is that's now what everybody wants. Just like everybody wants a Kyle Shanahan OC, everybody wants a mobile quarterback, a guy that can make plays off script. And if you go watch Jaden Daniels, not only is he so accurate down the field, he obviously can make plays off script just vertically down the field and with his legs. I would just be shocked. I think, and I've said this before, I wouldn't be shocked if Jaden Daniels goes number 2 overall. You're starting to see mocks and stuff suggest that. Maybe that's just people trying to mix up their mocks, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit, because I just think when you look at the progression, you look at his ability to stretch the field vertically with his arm and his accuracy down the field, and then you add in the fact that he's by far one of the most mobile quarterbacks that has ever entered the draft. I mean, that's going to be that's extremely appealing to us for a reason.
Yeah, I love Jaden Daniels. I loved watching him. LSU completely wasted a Heisman season. Matt House and Brian Kelly completely wasted a Heisman season.
Shout out Jaguar, Matt House.
But you'll never catch me saying he's better than Drake May. Drake May is absolutely unbelievable. It's Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels.
You say that. Jaden Daniels goes number 1 overall. We're going to have a different conversation on this podcast. I'm just saying you can bet it at 20-1. Not the worst bet in the world. Maybe someone doesn't like Caleb Williams and the way he's acted, that little ego, that little arrogance. You know how these things just kind of pop up. Like there's just going to be some little story. There's going to be so many little nuggets, and it's probably planted from teams behind the Bears, just trying to scare the Bears. Like, you sure you want this guy? You sure you want this guy? And the Bears, not necessarily known for always making the right decision.
Ryan Poles needs to just get out in front of the situation and trade Justin Fields, or at least make it known. Just make it known. Hey, come to me, Justin Fields. If they don't select Caleb Williams, it will be one of the most egregious mistakes in NFL history. In NFL history. Not just Bears franchise history, in NFL history.
Yeah. I mean, I do completely agree. I think Caleb Williams is the clear-cut number one, followed by Drake May and then Jaden Daniels. But you never know how these things work out. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about that potential fourth guy in the draft among quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy.